Hello, esteemed gentlemen. The moment a Sigma male wakes up spiritually, the universe stops whispering and starts taking notes. It's said that less than 2% of people ever experience a true spiritual awakening, and most of them spend years trying to make sense of what just happened. But when it hits a Sigma male, it's a whole different storm. This isn't a man sitting cross-legged humming in a candlelit room. This is a mind that's been silent for years, suddenly hearing everything the universe has been saying behind its back. At first, it's chaos. Energy shifts, patterns appear, people vanish, and silence becomes louder than ever. His old life begins to dissolve like a glitching simulation, and the Sigma just stands there, watching it all collapse, almost amused. Because deep down, he always knew something was off. He just couldn't name it until now. His awakening isn't about floating in peace. It's about burning illusions. It's the moment he realizes he was never lost, just surrounded by people who couldn't see. And the funniest part, while everyone else thinks he's detaching, he's actually tuning into a frequency they didn't even know existed. This is what happens when a Sigma male awakens spiritually, when the quiet one finally decodes the cosmic joke. Number 1, he no longer fights darkness, he integrates it. When a Sigma male awakens spiritually, he stops treating his darkness like an enemy that needs to be defeated. He finally understands that running from pain only makes it stronger. The shadows he once tried to hide, the anger, the guilt, the loneliness, the things he thought made him broken, all start to speak in a language he can finally understand. They weren't there to destroy him, they were there to teach him. The difference now is that he listens. He doesn't try to silence his darkness anymore. He studies it like a mirror that shows the parts of himself he once refused to face. This shift changes everything about the way he moves through life. He stops playing the good guy for approval, or pretending he's unaffected by the things that cut him deeply. He realizes the real power wasn't in suppressing his shadows, but in mastering them. That mastery doesn't come from denial, it comes from acceptance. His anger becomes drive, his pain becomes empathy, his loneliness becomes clarity. He turns what used to be emotional chaos into creative fire. It's not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole. The world around him can't quite understand it. They're used to people hiding their flaws under filters of positivity and pretending their darkness doesn't exist. But the Sigma walks differently. His calmness has depth now because he's made peace with his demons. He doesn't need to fake confidence. It radiates from the fact that nothing inside him is left unacknowledged. His shadows don't control him anymore. They serve him. He knows that rejecting them would only send them underground to sabotage him later. In this state, the Sigma becomes someone others can't easily manipulate, because there's no unhealed wound left for anyone to press. He's been through his own fire, and he's learned to use it instead of fear it. He doesn't seek light anymore. He is light that understands darkness. That's what makes his awakening so profound. He's not a man who escaped his demons. He's the one who walked with them until they bowed to him. And that's the kind of power no one can imitate. Number 2, he understands that enlightenment isn't light, it's clarity. When a Sigma male reaches true spiritual awakening, he realizes that enlightenment was never about glowing in divine perfection or living above human flaws. It was never about floating in peace or escaping the mess of reality. It was about seeing, completely, brutally, and without filters. He understands that clarity, not comfort, is the real awakening. And clarity isn't always beautiful. It's raw. It strips everything fake, exposes every mask, and forces him to face truths that others spend a lifetime avoiding. He doesn't see the world through illusions anymore. He sees it as it really is, layered, messy, and perfectly imperfect. He notices how people worship appearances while starving their souls, how society rewards noise over truth, and how easily humans trade authenticity for acceptance. This realization doesn't make him bitter, it makes him quiet. He doesn't argue with illusions anymore because he knows they're self-destructive by nature. He just observes, detached but awake, no longer hypnotized by the drama everyone else calls normal. He understands that enlightenment isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a responsibility to stay awake even when it's uncomfortable to do so. This kind of awareness changes his entire approach to life. He stops needing labels like good, bad, spiritual, or worldly. He knows that light and dark are two sides of the same current flowing through everything, including himself. He no longer chases high vibrations or positive vibes. He accepts whatever arises as part of the same divine design, and that acceptance gives him a strength that looks almost supernatural. He doesn't break when chaos hits, because he no longer sees chaos as a threat. To him, everything, joy, pain, loss, growth, is sacred data from the universe. People often mistake his calmness for coldness, but it's not detachment, it's understanding. He's seen the mechanism behind the illusion and learned not to flinch. He doesn't need to preach enlightenment or prove wisdom. His existence itself becomes proof of it. The Sigma male doesn't shine to be noticed. He shines because he finally sees. Enlightenment to him isn't light. It's the clarity to walk through darkness without losing himself. And that clarity is what truly makes him untouchable. Number 3. His ego doesn't die. It evolves into a servant. When the Sigma male awakens spiritually, he stops believing the popular lie that enlightenment requires destroying the ego. He knows that killing it would mean erasing part of what makes him human. And that's not evolution. That's denial. Instead, he reprograms it. His ego no longer drives his actions through fear or the need to prove something. It becomes a disciplined servant, trained to defend his boundaries and maintain his inner peace. What once controlled him now works for him. The same ego that used to crave validation becomes the force that keeps him grounded when the world tries to pull him back into chaos. Before awakening, his ego was his loudest voice, insecure, defensive, obsessed with being right or admired. It made him compete where there was no competition, and chase approval from people who didn't even value authenticity. But when clarity hits, he sees the ego for what it really is, a survival mechanism, not an identity. He no longer lets it steer the wheel, but he also doesn't throw it out of the car. He teaches it discipline. He gives it purpose. It becomes the silent guard that watches over his peace instead of the tyrant that once sabotaged it. This transformation gives him an edge few people ever achieve. Most are slaves to their ego without realizing it, addicted to attention, terrified of rejection, and desperate to be seen as special. The awakened Sigma no longer plays that game. His confidence doesn't come from comparison, it comes from balance. His ego stands beside him like a trained soldier, alert, contained, and loyal only to his higher self. He still feels pride, but it's clean. He still values respect, but he doesn't beg for it. He still knows his worth, but he doesn't need to prove it. The ego no longer feeds on others' opinions, it feeds on truth. That's what makes him unshakable. His awakening isn't about losing his identity. It's about mastering it. And in a world where everyone's ego is either inflated or broken, his becomes the rarest thing of all, obedient, sharp, and entirely under his command. Number 4. He becomes intolerant of shallow energy. When the Sigma male awakens spiritually, his tolerance for shallow energy collapses completely. The fake laughs, recycled conversations, and hollow interactions that once filled social spaces now feel like static to his senses. He no longer has the patience to sit through discussions that revolve around gossip, trends, or empty validation. His spirit starts craving depth, conversations that breathe, not just talk. Every word, every interaction, every presence either feeds or drains him, and he's finally awake enough to tell the difference. Before awakening, he could play along. He could nod, smile, and pretend to fit in when people talked about things that didn't matter. But now, pretending feels like betrayal, not to others, but to himself. He doesn't hate people. He just can't stand the energy of inauthenticity anymore. Forced smiles feel like emotional pollution. Small talk feels like time theft. He's no longer impressed by loud voices or empty confidence. What he values now is presence, people who speak truthfully, even if they're flawed, quiet, or misunderstood. This shift often isolates him further, but he doesn't mind. His silence isn't arrogance, it's filtration. He learns that energy doesn't lie, and that most people talk to escape themselves, not to connect. When he senses that kind of noise, he withdraws, not out of superiority, but self-respect. His energy becomes sacred real estate, and not everyone earns a lease. He learns that peace isn't found in company, but in alignment. Those around him might say he's changed, that he's become too serious, too quiet, or too detached. But he knows the truth. He's simply done pretending that shallow connections can nourish a deep soul. The silence that once felt uncomfortable now feels like home. It's not emptiness anymore, it's oxygen. The Sigma male no longer chases stimulation, he guards stillness. And in that stillness he finds something most people spend a lifetime avoiding, a kind of quiet so real it exposes everything fake. That's when you know he's truly awakened, when he'd rather sit alone in honest silence than drown in artificial noise. Number 5. His ambition mutates into purpose. When the Sigma male awakens spiritually, something profound happens. His ambition mutates into purpose. Before, he was driven by an invisible hunger to prove himself, to achieve, to be seen as capable or exceptional. Every goal was secretly an argument against his own doubt. His ambition came from survival, not fulfillment. But when awakening hits, that restless energy transforms. He no longer needs to prove anything, because he finally understands his worth isn't measured by results, money, or recognition. It's measured by alignment. His pursuit of success becomes calm, precise, and intentional. He stops running. He starts moving. The Sigma's grind used to come from an inner noise, a voice whispering that he wasn't enough yet. He tried to silence it with achievements, only to realize it always came back. After awakening, that voice fades. He no longer works to silence doubt. He works because he wants to. His ambition doesn't die, it matures. It becomes sacred, not a chase for validation, but a disciplined expression of his purpose. Every step forward is now rooted in clarity, not ego. This shift makes his progress slower on the surface, but far more powerful beneath it. He's no longer addicted to urgency or comparison. He doesn't care who notices his efforts anymore, because purpose doesn't perform, it radiates. The world starts to feel his energy even when he's silent. He doesn't chase success, he attracts alignment. People mistake his calmness for lack of drive, but they don't realize he's moved beyond competition. He's playing a game only he understands, one measured by peace, not applause. His work becomes a spiritual act. Every project, every decision, every effort carries a weight of meaning that can't be faked. He's not hustling to escape his life. He's building something that reflects his soul. That's why his actions start to carry quiet impact. He no longer runs on ambition's adrenaline. He moves with purpose's gravity. And that shift makes him unstoppable, because you can distract a man chasing goals, but you can't derail one who's walking in purpose. Number 6. He starts detecting manipulation like a sixth sense. When the Sigma male awakens spiritually, his perception deepens to a level that can't be explained, only experienced. His awareness sharpens so intensely that manipulation stops being invisible. Emotional dishonesty, hidden agendas, and fake kindness all begin to stand out to him like bad acting. He doesn't need proof, evidence, or gossip. He just knows. The tone, the energy, the subtle shift in someone's eyes. His intuition decodes what others miss. It's not magic, it's presence. When the mind becomes silent, truth becomes loud. Before awakening, he used to give people the benefit of the doubt. He excused lies as misunderstandings, defended emotional users, and overlooked red flags in the name of peace. But that version of him no longer exists. The awakened Sigma can no longer unsee manipulation when it's happening. He reads between words and catches what's left unsaid. He can sense when praise is bait, when sympathy is control, or when someone's pretending to care just to extract value. His sensitivity becomes his shield. This awareness changes how he interacts with the world. He no longer reacts, he registers. Instead of confronting manipulators loudly, he starts withdrawing silently. He stops giving explanations because he knows manipulators thrive on confusion and attention. His calm distance becomes their punishment. They can't stand it because they can't find a button to press anymore. His peace is now his form of defense, and his intuition is his alarm system. What makes this transformation terrifying to manipulators is that he doesn't fight them. He simply sees through them. You can't manipulate someone who sees your strategy before you even use it. He becomes unreadable, impossible to guilt trip, and immune to flattery. People who rely on emotional games find themselves uncomfortable around him because he mirrors their truth back to them without a word. His presence alone forces pretense to crumble. The Sigma male's spiritual awakening turns him into something most people aren't prepared to handle, a man who can see through the performance of others while staying calm enough to let them expose themselves. That's not intuition anymore. That's insight sharpened by evolution. Number 7. He loses interest in the idea of winning. When the Sigma male awakens spiritually, the entire concept of winning loses its meaning. The hunger to compete, to prove superiority, or to come out on top no longer excites him. It drains him. He realizes that most competition is just ego disguised as ambition. The endless chase to be better than others, richer than others, or more admired than others is a treadmill that never stops. He sees that victory, in the way society defines it, isn't freedom. It's another form of bondage. The moment you need to win, you've already handed your piece to the scoreboard. Before awakening, he might have lived by silent competition, measuring himself against peers, trying to outperform, or collecting achievements as armor. But that hunger came from insecurity, not purpose. After awakening, he no longer plays that invisible game. His focus shifts inward. Mastery becomes his obsession, not mastery of others, but mastery of self. He learns that real power isn't found in dominating someone else's lane. It's found in owning your own mind so completely that no external success or failure can define you. This shift confuses people around him. They think he's lost motivation, but the truth is, he's just stopped mistaking motion for progress. He no longer needs to win because he's realized there's nothing to compete for. He's not chasing approval, titles, or validation. He's chasing clarity, peace, and depth. The same energy that once drove him to outshine others now drives him to refine his craft, his thinking, and his soul. Every day becomes a quiet experiment in self-evolution. He also sees how the world manipulates people with competition, how it keeps them addicted to comparison, so they never notice who's really pulling the strings. The Sigma's awakening frees him from that illusion. He doesn't crave recognition anymore. He craves alignment. He no longer asks, "Am I winning?" but rather, "Am I becoming?" And in that question lies his ultimate victory, one that no one else can measure, imitate, or take away. Because when a man stops competing and starts mastering himself, he's no longer playing the game. He's transcended it. Number 8. He begins to sense energies, not personalities. When the Sigma male awakens spiritually, his perception evolves beyond surface appearances. He stops being fooled by charm, status, or well-crafted words, because he's no longer listening with his ears. He's listening with his energy. He doesn't just see people. He feels them. Every presence carries a vibration, and his awakened state tunes him into that frequency effortlessly. What used to impress him, confidence, beauty, intelligence, now holds no weight if the energy behind it feels off. He starts noticing how truth feels calm, while deceit vibrates like static. This awareness becomes his quiet superpower, one that can't be explained logically, but never lies. Before awakening, he judged through logic like everyone else. He believed words, appearances, and social signals. But now, something deeper in him does the filtering. A person can say all the right things, but if their energy contradicts their words, he feels it instantly. His intuition becomes his radar. He can enter a room and sense who's genuine, who's hiding pain, and who's pretending to be someone they're not. It's not about suspicion, it's about resonance. His soul simply knows what aligns with his peace and what doesn't. This new sensitivity changes the way he connects with people. He doesn't waste time explaining himself anymore because energy speaks faster than language. He chooses silence over debate, distance over tolerance, and truth over appearances. He doesn't chase connections. He allows them. When the energy feels right, he relaxes into it. When it doesn't, he withdraws without a word. His boundaries become instinctive, not rules, but reactions. People often misinterpret this as arrogance or coldness, but it's actually the opposite. He's just deeply aware of how every exchange affects his spirit. He's no longer interested in convincing anyone of his intentions or decoding theirs through endless conversation. He simply feels the truth and acts accordingly. And because of that, his world becomes quieter, cleaner, and more aligned. The Sigma's energy sensitivity is more than intuition. It's evolution. He's not reading personalities anymore. He's reading frequencies. And in a world built on pretense, that kind of perception makes him untouchably wise. Number 9. The world starts looking scripted. When the Sigma male awakens spiritually, the world begins to look staged, not in a paranoid way, but in a profoundly revealing one. Everything that once seemed spontaneous now feels pre-programmed. The routines, the social expectations, the unspoken rules that govern behavior. He sees the script running underneath it all. He starts noticing how most people move on autopilot, repeating inherited beliefs, chasing trends, and living lives designed for them by invisible systems. It's as if the entire world is caught in a movie where everyone's too distracted to realize they're acting. And the Sigma, now fully awake, can't unsee it. He watches the way media manufactures desires, the way society rewards conformity disguised as success, and the way relationships often operate on unspoken transactions instead of truth. It's not judgment, it's clarity. He simply sees the patterns for what they are. Conversations feel rehearsed, ideologies recycled, and people's reactions painfully predictable. He starts noticing how everyone quotes the same sources, wears the same values, and fears standing alone. The illusion of choice starts to crumble before his eyes, and the whole thing feels like a perfectly designed loop meant to keep minds asleep. At first, this awareness can feel alienating. He feels like the only one who stepped off the stage while everyone else keeps reciting their lines. But over time, that distance becomes his peace. He no longer wastes energy trying to wake others up. He just stops playing the game. He disconnects from the noise, chooses authenticity over acceptance, and reclaims his mind from manipulation. What once felt like rebellion now feels like sanity. This is the point where the Sigma becomes unpredictable, because scripts can only control those still acting in them. He no longer responds the way the system expects. He doesn't react to provocation, doesn't chase approval, and doesn't fear rejection. He operates from awareness, not programming, and that makes him nearly impossible to manipulate. To the unawakened, his detachment seems mysterious. But to him, it's simple. Once you see the strings, you stop dancing for the puppeteer. Number 10. His anger becomes alchemical. When the Sigma male awakens spiritually, his relationship with anger transforms completely. He no longer sees it as something shameful to hide or dangerous to suppress. He realizes that anger, in its purest form, isn't evil. It's energy, raw and unfiltered. Before awakening, his rage may have controlled him, erupting in silence, frustration, or withdrawal. But now, that same emotion becomes his fire, refined, redirected, and repurposed. Instead of burning bridges, it lights his path. He stops wasting energy pretending to be calm when he's not. The awakened Sigma doesn't fear his dark emotions anymore. He listens to them. He understands that anger only becomes toxic when it's denied. By facing it head-on, he learns to channel it into clarity. His anger begins to show him what truly matters, what crosses his boundaries, what violates his peace, what no longer resonates with his spirit. It becomes a compass pointing toward truth. That's where the alchemy happens. Instead of reacting impulsively, he converts that heat into creative and spiritual fuel. He writes, builds, evolves, or walks away, but he never collapses. His anger becomes movement, not destruction. It drives him to break patterns, to confront injustice, and to say the things others are too afraid to. It becomes honesty in motion. People who mistake his calm for weakness are often startled when they see how powerful his fire becomes once directed by awareness. This mastery doesn't mean he never gets angry. It means his anger now serves him. It sharpens his focus and burns away self-deception. It keeps him from tolerating disrespect or settling for mediocrity. Every spark that once consumed him now fuels his evolution. He learns to let anger cleanse, not corrupt. The Sigma's awakened anger is no longer personal. It's purposeful. It's the same force that once made him rebel, now making him rise. And that's what makes it alchemical. He doesn't destroy when he's angry. He transforms. His fury no longer controls his story. It powers it. That's when his fire stops being emotional and becomes elemental. Number 11. He outgrows the language of victimhood. When the Sigma male awakens spiritually, he outgrows the language of victimhood entirely. He stops telling stories that start with "what they did to me" or "why life isn't fair." Not because his pain didn't happen, but because he's finally decoded what it was meant to teach him. He realizes that every betrayal, every setback, every heartbreak was never random. It was information, not punishment. His suffering was the curriculum his soul needed to evolve. The moment he understands that, the need for pity dissolves. He no longer wants sympathy. He wants truth. Before awakening, he might have carried quiet resentment, not towards others necessarily, but towards the world itself. The feeling that life had shortchanged him, that his silence or individuality made him misunderstood. But that narrative collapses when he wakes up. He sees that pain was never there to break him. It was there to refine him. The very things that isolated him were the forces shaping his insight. sharpening his instincts and forging his strength. He no longer asks, "Why me?" because he understands, "Of course me." Growth demanded it. Once this shift happens, his power becomes unsettling to others. Most people bond over shared wounds and complaints. They use pain to connect. But the awakened Sigma doesn't do that anymore. He doesn't repeat stories of suffering for validation. He doesn't weaponize trauma for attention. He's learned that the more you identify as a victim, the more you stay chained to what hurt you. Instead, he extracts the lesson, integrates it, and moves on. Quietly, powerfully. This evolution makes his energy different. He becomes hard to manipulate because guilt, pity, and emotional traps no longer work on him. His peace is too expensive to sell for sympathy. He understands that strength isn't pretending nothing hurt. It's realizing pain was never an accident. It was precise, necessary, and perfectly timed for who he was meant to become. The Sigma doesn't escape his suffering. He translates it. And in that translation, he discovers something rare. Liberation without bitterness. That's when you know he's truly awakened. When he doesn't just survive his pain, he outgrows its language. Number 12. He sees through religious and spiritual theater. When the Sigma male awakens spiritually, one of the first illusions that shatters for him is the performance of spirituality itself. He begins to see how religion and even modern spirituality often become theaters, filled with scripts, costumes, and applause, but missing authenticity. He stops mistaking rituals for awakening, because he now understands that most rituals were designed to keep people obedient, not free. He sees that true spirituality was never about memorizing holy words, collecting crystals, or posting affirmations online. It was always about dismantling lies, especially the comfortable ones. Before his awakening, he may have tried to fit into systems of belief that promised enlightenment but demanded conformity. But now he sees how easy it is to hide behind symbols and ceremonies while remaining spiritually asleep. He watches people preach love but radiate ego, quote scriptures yet fear truth, and call themselves healers while avoiding their own darkness. This realization doesn't make him cynical. It makes him clear. He understands that spirituality without self-honesty is just another mask. The Sigma's awakening strips away the performance. He doesn't need to prove his faith, advertise his peace, or join any group to feel connected to something greater. His connection is direct, raw, and personal. No intermediaries, no hierarchy. He stops searching for God in temples, texts, or trends, and finds it in the silence within himself. That silence becomes his sacred ground. It's not decorated with chants or rituals. It's clean, honest, and real. This kind of spirituality is rebellion, not comfort. It demands brutal self-awareness. It asks him to question everything he was taught, even if it leaves him standing alone. He stops chasing light and starts honoring truth, even when that truth burns. His faith is no longer blind, it's conscious. He no longer worships, he understands. People who are still acting out the script of spiritual theater find him unsettling because he doesn't play along. He doesn't need a stage to be real. His calmness, his insight, his refusal to fake enlightenment, that's his prayer. The Sigma male's spirituality isn't about looking holy. It's about being whole. And that difference is what makes his awakening impossible to imitate. When a Sigma male awakens spiritually, it's not a gentle process. It's an internal earthquake that rearranges everything he thought he knew about life, success, love, and himself. He doesn't walk around glowing or preaching. He walks around seeing. He sees the illusions that once trapped him, the masks people wear to survive, and the quiet beauty in standing apart. His awakening isn't about becoming a saint, it's about becoming real. It's the moment he stops chasing meaning and starts embodying it. Every wound becomes wisdom, every silence becomes understanding, and every loss becomes light wearing a darker disguise. He no longer seeks the world's approval because he's met something deeper, his truth. That truth no longer shouts, it hums quietly beneath everything he does. His power becomes invisible yet undeniable. People feel it in his stillness, in his refusal to compete, in his ability to see through illusion without becoming bitter. His awakening doesn't make him better than others, it just makes him free in a world terrified of freedom. And that's what makes the awakened Sigma so rare. He carries the kind of peace that can't be borrowed, faked, or taught. This is the Sigma male after the awakening, unbothered, untamed, unshakably grounded. He doesn't run from darkness or worship the light. He walks with both, balanced and whole. The more the world tries to understand him, the less it can, because he's not here to fit into their system. He's here to see through it. And once a man starts seeing, nothing can blind him again. If this message spoke to your soul, take a moment. Breathe, reflect, and let it sink in. Then make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with those who are ready to wake up too. Drop a comment below on which part resonated with you most. Your words might be the spark that helps someone else see their own truth. This isn't just content. It's a movement of awakening, and you're part of it now.